Welcome back to 5AM StoryTalk, my friends. I'm Cole Haddon, and this is 5AM RealTalk, a plog where you and I get to talk about what's going on in my life as an artist, what I'm struggling with in the arts and its industries in general. Today, we're going to be talking about my reactions to the new films, The Testament of Anne Lee and The Bride, the fact that only 53% of Americans saw a movie in the theater last year and what this means, and of course, those Oscars. I'm not shocked at all, but I think I can explain what happened to Sinners to the legions of people who were rooting for it. So be sure to stick around for that. But to start, I want to address the heavy subject of the last episode of 5AM Real Talk, which so many of you sent wonderful, thoughtful notes to me about. I got into the personal breaking point I'd reached after more than a year of working 70 to 80 hours a week. Now, for those of you new here, I'm a professional screenwriter and novelist, plus I write essays and record this podcast for 5AM StoryTalk, which I hope you subscribe to if you haven't already. As I was saying, maintaining all my commitments snowballed into the worst year of my life, which was compounded by a lot of stressors at home. This hustle culture was killing me, I think maybe literally, and I wanted to finally come clean about that with you, in case you were going through something similar. But I also talked about how I'd drawn a line in the sand and begun to rapidly reorganize my life to free up more time for me to focus on me and my family and just be able to write things of my own. You see, I've worked consistently for the past 5 years, but that's primarily been on TV projects production companies brought me. I'd originated a few projects, more than a few really, and set them up, but they've been slow going, moving them forward. And I have a new novel I'm working on too, but all too often, that had taken the back seat to paying gigs. Well, thanks to this breakdown, if we want to call it that, or why don't we say reckoning with the life I'd made for myself, I find myself with more time on my hands than I've had in a long, long time. Here's the good news for those of you who have been broken down by fatigue in any way. My imagination didn't take long to recover. If anything, it just needed some room to actually function like it used to. Within a week, I started experimenting in any number of directions. I don't know what's going to stick here because I'm kind of just, fizzing with this creative energy right now. But I've started a few short stories. I think one of them could be great if I pull it off. I think I've also identified a new feature spec I want to write. Over the past few days, I've been stress testing it with other screenwriters I trust. It's part of my process. Anyway, the point is, I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling like something exciting is happening, or rather could be happening. Maybe I fall on my face. That's always the risk. But the potential is there, and I don't think it's been for a while, if I'm honest. Thanks to all of you who expressed concern about where I was, shared your own stories of hustle culture exhaustion, or just showed up to say thank you for validating what you're going through too. I see you. Thank you. Switching gears, I've been hitting the cinema more so than usual these days. With more control over my life, I can now head into the city a lot more often to check out new films. For example, I've recently seen 2 hugely ambitious films, both directed by women. The first film is The Testament of Anne Lee from Mona Fastvold, who co-wrote The Brutalist last year. Brilliant film. Anne Lee is even more ambitious and beaver shit crazy in every way. I mean, who does a moody musical shot like a Dutch old master's painting, driven by soaring spirituals about a woman convinced she's the second coming of Jesus Christ? But that's the true story of Anne Lee, the founder of the Shakers, and Fastfold, she just goes for it. Amanda Seyfried is brilliant in it too, by the way. The other film is The Bride from Maggie Gyllenhaal. This film somehow manages to be even crazier than The Testament of Anne Lee. It's a sequel to the Frankenstein novel, told once again by Mary Shelley, or rather her ghost. It's a bit murky there, but Frankenstein, the monster, who now goes by his creator's name, wants a bride. He gets it, too, when gangsters, because it's the 1930s, Chicago, why not, right? Gangsters kill a young woman and she gets resurrected. It gets into all kinds of ideas about the feminine experience here, obviously, a lot more than that, too. And overall, it's a lot. And yet, Gyllenhaal somehow holds her ambition together with style and great performances and so much confidence. What links these two films is the audacity of them. At worst, they're glorious failures, and I say that as someone who has a lot of favorite films that are glorious failures, but I think they're both more than that. Neither seem to care that there are other films being made right now. They are singular in every way, and that is so rare these days. While both provoked very complicated reactions from me, Both made me lean forward, pay attention, want to understand them and their filmmakers better. They excited me. They made me wonder if I'll ever do anything that, madcap. And maybe I did. Maybe I did with my novel Psalms for the End of the World, but will that be the only time? Guys, I went to the movies 2 weeks in a row and had my mind blown 2 weeks in a row, and I don't know. That's amazing to me. Have you seen either? What did you think of them? Find me in the comments and let me know. I also bring these films up because Pew Research just released a study conducted last summer that showed only 53% of American adults saw a film in a movie theater last year. 53%. I wish I could clearly and succinctly explain how absolutely fucking insane this is. Now, the math is complicated, or at least too complicated to get into here, but essentially, the peak of modern movie attendance was 2002, and at that time, twice as many tickets were sold per American adult, so a lot more people were going to the movies. There are so many reasons why this change has occurred, from ticket prices to streaming to COVID. But there's also a constant narrative that's taken hold that what gets released is crap these days. And I get it. I do. I've talked about how Hollywood's over-reliance on formulaic structures and IP exploitation has robbed the movie-going experience of the sense of newness that used to excite audiences. Why spend a small fortune to see something familiar on the big screen, right? But going to the movies is about more than just the big budget stuff Hollywood is churning out. 2025 was one of the most exciting years for film in the 21st century. If you look beyond those big Hollywood titles, there is an impressive collection of bold, ambitious films desperately trying to make sense of the world we found ourselves living in. Even amongst the films released by major studios and streamers are extraordinary titles like Sinners, Frankenstein, and One Battle After Another. Beyond the sexiest titles, the ones that get the biggest headlines, like the ones I just listed, we're also seeing an expanding range of films trying to challenge or transform cinema in some way, like The Testament of Anne Lee and The Bride. We have to get past this stupid notion that films have to be perfect or a box office success to deserve our love. Art is about risk, both for the artist and the audience. If you want to be surprised, you have to buy a movie ticket to see something crazy like these films. If you want to experience something new, you're not going to do that sitting at home. And I'm sorry, but the odds are against that happening to you watching a new film on a streamer from the safety of your couch. The experience just isn't the same. It isn't. You need a crowd. You need the dark, the big screen, and you need to stop blaming the movies for you not buying a ticket to participate in this, for me, religious experience, because there isn't anything good getting released today. That's insane. That's stupid. It's embarrassing. The movies are bigger than comic book movies or whatever else turns you off to cinema. Seek out good art if you want good art in your life. It's really that simple. I'm so glad I saw these two films, Testament of Anne Lee and The Bride, because in a world where so much of what I'm asked to see is indistinguishable from the next film in so many ways, these two staked everything on being the opposite. And whether you find them perfect or not, that fearlessness, that audacity should be worth the price of admission alone. Hell, maybe it'll inspire you to push your own art past your safety zone too. As promised, I also want to tackle the Oscars, which took place last weekend. I haven't watched in almost a decade now. At some point, I just couldn't get past all the, bullshit campaigning and racism and sexism that still goes into it. God, the Oscars used to be like the Super Bowl for me. My parents letting me stay up ridiculously late on a school night because we were Eastern Standard Time. I miss that. I miss that magic so much. Anyway, for those of you who haven't heard yet, One Battle After Another won Best Picture, and its director Paul Thomas Anderson won Best Director. So, serious question here. How many people do you know who spent the past 6 months talking about this film? Now, don't get me wrong. I loved it. It's a great film. I left the theater feeling jolted to life by it. So then, why hasn't social media and film conversations been dominated by talk about it since its release? Everyone has been talking about Sinners instead, which was, you probably know, written and directed by Ryan Coogler of Fruitvale Station, Creed, and Black Panther fame. Brilliant director, just like P.T. Anderson. But Sinners, a film universally beloved by critics and audiences, unlike One Battle After Another, which has instead generated a lot of debate of all kinds, That's a whole other episode, and frankly, there are plenty of brilliant Black folks out there you should listen to talk about it instead. In fact, I'll link to a great essay by Brooke Obi in the episode notes if you want to learn more. Again, nothing I'm saying here is to take away from one battle after another. Instead, what I'm trying to get around to saying is, Sinners never had a chance to win anyway, nor did Coogler for Best Director. A few weeks ago here, I even suggested Sinners was going to win Best Picture and Best Director, but in hindsight, that was stupid. Stupid. A moment of reckless hope. So let's talk about why one battle after another won, in my opinion, beyond its considerable merits. In other words, why a film like One Battle After Another could win Best Picture over a film that shook the film industry and wider culture as much as Sinners did. And that's twofold. The first, the Academy only gives Best Pictures to films about race when they make white people feel like they're the good guys in some way or another. Films have to let white people, in particular white liberals, off the hook in some psychological way, like Driving Miss Daisy, Crash, and Green Book. 12 Years a Slave is an outlier because it's about historical horrors, so it lets contemporary white liberals watch it and go, look, I watched a slavery film and felt sad, so how can I be racist? The act of watching it alone, is enough to validate how not racist they are. Moonlight is an oddity altogether that might confuse you. It's confused me at times. How could white Academy members vote in such numbers for this all-black film, right? Well, my theory is there are no bad white people in it to feel guilty about through racial association. Here's another way to put what I'm talking about. Any film that doesn't make white Academy members feel like good white liberals will be rejected when voting starts, regardless of how much those white liberals sing the film's praises. Oh, it'll get some awards, don't get me wrong. They're never completely ignored. You just can't get the Best Director or Best Picture Oscar if white folks in your picture don't get a pass at some point. And Sinners doesn't give white folks any kind of free pass. Consequently, it had no real chance of winning. The other reason Sinners wasn't going to go home with the two biggest awards is because of the deal Ryan Coogler struck with Warner Brothers. He got complete creative control over this film. First dollar gross revenue participation, which very few directors get and only a small handful of black directors have ever gotten. And most significantly, Coogler gets back the film rights to Sinners after 25 years, which is unheard of. If this were a white filmmaker who pulled this off, the trades would have reported it like a huge accomplishment. Instead, the trades talked about Coogler's coup like it set a dangerous precedent everyone in town should be scared of. They might as well have warned of the uppity black man coming for what's theirs. What I'm saying is, a black man fucked the traditional powers that be in Hollywood. He threatened their system of control. He beat them at their own game. White Hollywood was never, ever going to reward him for that. If anything, they were going to have to find a way to put him in his place. And yeah, maybe I'm cynical, but that doesn't mean I'm wrong. Okay, let's start to wrap up now, which means it's time for an artist quote, which I like to share here at the end of these Real Talk eps. This one comes from Lady Gaga. She said, "When you make music or write or create, it's really your job to have mind-blowing, irresponsible, condomless sex with whatever idea it is you're writing about at that time." Now, I love this quote. It captures the rawness, the fearlessness of the creative process when you leave yourself truly open to it. But more than that, I think it distills a lot of why I wanted to talk to you about The Testament of Anne Lee and The Bride this week, and why I think I love Sinners so much. We don't just make art to serve the interests of capital, though it is fantastic for everyone when art and commerce perform a kind of synchronized dance. No, we make art for the transcendent experience that can accompany the creative process, which Sinner's midpoint twist even depicts, a sequence that'll be studied for decades, by the way. We make art because we want to do something new, something exciting, something that scares us, something that transforms us. We want to do something so fucking cool, so audacious, to come back to that word, that people will say there will never be another one like them when we die. I don't know. Maybe that's not you, but it's me. And even though I rarely succeed, it is also the beginning aspiration. So, toss that prophylactic in the trash bin and get down to some irresponsible banging of that great idea that scares the shit out of you. All right, that's it for this week's episode of 5 AM Real Talk. If you have any questions about what we've discussed, find me in the comments of this episode at Substack, YouTube, Spotify, or the 5am StoryTalk podcast Instagram account. Links in the episode notes. I'd love to hear about any films or TV series, books, whatever, that have blown your mind lately too. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. A 5-star rating and/or review at Apple is hugely helpful too if you're up for it. See you around, Story Talkers.